And we're live! Welcome everybody to the Renegade Society Radio show. We are very excited to have everyone here. We've got some fun people in the chat room already, and we have a crazy amount of guests. We have a full house tonight. So I wanted to welcome to the show Scott Gaeta, president of Renegade Game Studios. Welcome, Scott.
Hello.
And we also have Katie O'Neill. She is the illustrator, author, and creative force behind some of our favorite graphic novels, including Princess Ever After and the T-Dragon Society, which we are working on a project for. So welcome to the show, Katie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And two other helpful people in the T-Dragon Society card game. We have both of the designers with us this evening, Steve Ellis. Hi, Steve.
Hello.
And Tyler Tinsely. Hi, Tyler.
Hi.
Yay! And that's everyone. We made it.
You nailed it.
Success.
That's unprecedented.
I know, right? Yay! So we're all here. I'm very excited because I can't wait for the T-Dragon Society card game. I think that it's a really unique game in our catalog. And it is really cool because it brings a lot of new people to this audience. And I think it's just going to be really neat. So we were super excited to have all of you on the show tonight because you all really added something special to this program. So thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
Yay. So I do have a few questions first for Katie. So give us a little intro. Where are you from? How did you get into this? What do you do? Just a little bit about you.
So I'm from New Zealand, and I was super lucky that when I started posting my webcomic Princess online, it gained quite a bit of traction, and my editor, or my current editor at Only Press, actually reached out and was like, would you like to make this a book? And I was like, yes, I would. And so it kind of started from there. So we started with two contracts. One was for Princess, which we retitled Princess Ever After because there's already a Princess thing licensed in the States. And then T-Dragons was also like the first original thing that I made to be a graphic novel with Only Press. So it's been really exciting for it to like actually exist in the world and like have come out, and yeah. And so I'm doing this full time at the moment, which is very fortunate. And yeah, so it's been really cool.
So tell us a little bit, how did you get into the world of webcomics? What prompted that?
It was back in like maybe 2012 or something, and I was using Tumblr a lot, and back then everyone on Tumblr made a webcomic. Like, you just did it. It was like such a sort of like straightforward way to tell the stories that you'd had since you were a teen that you really wanted to tell. And of course with webcomics, there's no gatekeepers. You can make whatever story you want. You know, no one's going to tell you there's no audience for this, we're not going to publish this, we don't, agree with this or whatever. So you just make the thing basically. And I've seen quite a lot of even now a lot of creators are kind of making their starts in webcomics because it kind of pushes you to have made this book, and then you might print that, take it to conventions, kickstart it, put it online, and a lot of editors these days are reaching out to people through like webcomics and things. So it's just a really nice accessible medium that lets you kind of tell like exactly the story that you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool, right? So like all those things that you said, that you can just kind of do whatever you want, but then you made the transition to working with a publisher and getting much broader reach. How do you? So are you still doing webcomics, or are you now just kind of focused on your partnership with Oni and reaching probably 10 times the number of people?
I think I can see the positives of both, because obviously Only Press has access to a marketing system that, if you're not in the business, you just don't have, and you have no means of really accessing. Even if you do Kickstart and you manage to get some distribution into stores, it's not the same as getting into Diamond Catalog or having Simon & Schuster or someone like that picking you up and putting you in places. So it's been really nice And working for Press is basically like working for myself, because they don't like make me change things. They don't go, oh, you can't have this many gay characters, you can't have, you can't say this, or you have to put this message in. It's like pretty much the thing that I wanted to make is what ends up getting made. So like creatively it feels very fulfilling. But I still think webcomics are really cool, and especially I'm getting into like mobile kind of based webcomics. So you just scroll down instead of having like pages that you flip. It's just like panels that you just scroll down. And so it's like super accessible for people like commuting or like traveling, and just kind of a nice way to read it. So I think that's kind of what interests me more about webcomics now.
Oh, okay. That's cool. All right. Sorry, Sarah. So that's my job, is to derail Sarah, just ask questions that I'm personally interested in. So.
No, it's great. I had actually never thought about webcomics like that were just scrolling. So fascinating. That's very cool.
Yeah, they're quite popular in East Asia. There's a lot of creators there, or Southeast Asia as well. And I think they're starting to come into popularity in the West, just because, yeah, you can just put them on your phone and just have them with you all the time.
Cool.
Yeah, that's super awesome. So what projects have you worked on in the past? You mentioned Princess Ever After, which is one of my favorite webcomics I've ever read. It's so dear to my heart. I love it. And of course, T-Dragon Society. So what else have you done in the past, or what else are you excited about working on in the future?
I think besides those two, all I've really done in terms of like comics before were short experimental like webcomics, like under 10 pages. I did a short series for Lion Forge that was kind of like a magical girl comic, but I wasn't the writer on that one. So yeah, T-Dragons was really the first one that was like going from idea, pitch, development, artwork in a very sequential way. So that was really cool. So I'm really excited to keep working on projects like that, and in fact just like continue the T-Dragons kind of story, because I think there's like a lot that I still want to develop with that.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't realize you were still working on it. That's very cool.
Yeah, definitely like a sequel kind of a prequel in the works. But I feel like I'd really like to end up kind of mapping out the lives of the characters and really fleshing out the world and the different dragons and stuff. It's been really fun.
Very neat. So inside my copy of the T-Dragon Society, I actually found this little flyer.
Oh,
do you want to tell us a little bit about this?
So Echo Cove is the book that's coming out in October this year. So October is kind of my slot with Oni Press. I make a book every year. They sell a book every year. It comes out in October. So Echo Cove is like kind of set in more in the real world. It's more based on like my childhood in New Zealand. The kind of location is like set in a very small seaside kind of village, and so it's much more of a community. But it's about sort of like, I wanted to make a book that's first of all got really cool magical creatures for kids to enjoy. So these are kind of big magical seahorses, because I got really obsessed with seahorses for like 2 months, and then learned that they are like diabolical to look after. You'll worry about them every day of your life if you have a seahorse. They're so fragile. And so I was like, okay, well, I can make a book about them still. So that's kind of where the creatures came from, and then drawing the reef and stuff. And obviously conservation's like a really important issue, and starting with the oceans, which is kind of the source of life for our planet in so many ways. And I think I really wanted to try and sort of take the viewpoint of a child who is facing a world that's already been damaged so much by the generations that came before. So, that's something I wanted to like acknowledge, so that when kids read it, that's what they feel, but then also still give them hope that they can change it, and they can kind of, in a way, stand up to the people who have come before and have done this damage and have lived this kind of wasteful lifestyle, and they can actually I hope to inspire them to actually kind of, take a stand when they need to.
I love this so much, because I actually did an exchange program when I lived in New Zealand for 6 months. I went to Hamilton. And the thing that I took away more than anything else from my time in New Zealand was that as a New Zealander, you seem to really understand that there are really big impacts that people have on your environment around you, because there's all sorts of really kind of major ecological disasters that have happened in New Zealand. And yet it's still such an incredible, beautiful place that I really feel like represents every different part of the possibilities in the world. You have every environment you could imagine, from fjords to deserts to islands to rainforests and everything in between. And yet you are able to take care of all of these different diverse areas because you learn so much from the past, from different people coming to New Zealand and having invasive species or taking resources that you shouldn't have or whatever. And I just really, really love that about New Zealand. And so I think you have a really special perspective to be able to create this type of story. So I think that's really cool. Also, I did want to mention my little sister had seahorses as a kid, and she liked to pet them, and they did not live very long.
Oh, no.
So,
yeah, they're really hard.
But anyway, so I'm super, super excited about this book.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So Scott, did you have anything else you wanted to talk to Katie about?
I have all sorts of questions.
I thought you
I want to know, where did the idea for tea dragons, the actual dragons themselves, come from? I mean, I think they're adorable, but it's also kind of brilliant that they kind of, right, like sprout herbs.
Growing the tea.
Yeah, and grow the tea. So yeah, how did you come up with that? 'Cause that's pretty original.
I mean, I do a lot of creature design in my downtime. Like, my hobby, I would say, is like coming up with creatures and combining different animals and stuff. Like all the creatures in Avatar: The Last Airbender are just so good. And so I think it was mostly just that particular kind of idea that just kind of came to me really struck a chord with a lot of people. And I think the more I developed it, the more I realized like it would be nice to kind of give it something a little bit more than just sort of the cute factor, and try and really like, give it some context that makes it important to people, and makes them like something kind of special to have in your life as well. Yeah,
it was pretty cool. So I was looking at the tea dragons, and my 11-year-old was asking questions about them, and he's recently really got into bonsai trees, and he made the comparison, and he said, "Oh, they're like little living bonsai trees, right? Like, because in the book, right, they're so fragile, and you have to really take care of them. They're kind of temperamental, and I don't know if you've ever tried to raise those little trees, but they're a giant pain. Like,
no, I haven't, like, but I
just want to die."
Yep, that sounds exactly. Yeah, no, I was definitely inspired by the just how patient you have to be, and it's like they live for so long, and they require such like diligent care, but anyone who keeps them can easily just they can explain why, kind of thing, like why they take care of this tiny demanding tree.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah, they're brilliant. I mean, I think that from a creature creation standpoint, they're really original, and there's a lot of depth, and I think people are going to really want to latch onto them. I know, like, Tyler had the plush on before we went live. He had it sitting on his shoulder, and every time people see the plush of the dragons, they don't even know anything about it, and they just go crazy. So.
Oh, that's so good.
I think we saw a similar reaction, right? Like at TCAP up in Toronto, when people saw the cards and saw the dragons, like it just immediately sucks them in.
Yeah, no, the cards were so well designed. I think that really helps. Just like people, because at Bandcamp we had it next to the table, so I'd just be like, "Oh, you can go see it open over there," and they just kind of like swarm over towards like these colorful cards with the kind of like the different seasonal kind of decorations and things.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. While doing demos, it's really nice to have a demo that people just walk up and want to be shown immediately. You don't have to like, "Hey, you want to try this game?" People just walk up and want to try it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that really speaks to the accessibility of this game. It's just so inviting to begin with. But then this game also, Tyler and Steve did such a great job of making it really accessible. So the minute you walk up to the table, you can actually start playing and you understand what's going on. And really, that's what I assume you guys were trying to accomplish when you made this game, was make it so anybody could play it. But there's still enough depth and interest once you get into it and you get closer to the end of the game. The gamers' little brains start turning and you see all the fun stuff that you time you to. So I think that that is just done really brilliantly.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's I mean, we worked really hard to try to make the game specifically accessible to the target age group of the book. I mean, that was kind of one of our primary goals, right? We didn't want to make a game that the fans of the book would struggle to play, right? Because the whole goal is to kind of engage those fans, and then other people who maybe aren't yet fans of the book but are in that same demographic, we wanted them to fall in love with those little creatures again as well. And so, I mean, that was the kind of primary tenet when we started, was to make something that was really accessible and make sure that everybody could enjoy it. But there's definitely hidden depth there for those who are willing to play a couple games. They'll realize that the gamer might start beating them a lot.
So, Steve, I actually want to dig into that a little bit. So you, in addition to being the game guru, president, owner of wonderful restaurant plans and everything else at Oni Press, yep. You also own a game store, Rainy Day Games.
I do. I have a shirt on and everything. Look at that.
Nice. I like it.
I like my shirt better today.
Scott's shirt is better, but I mean, mine does have 20 years of history. So
that's true.
Those tea dragons are older than 20 years.
That's true. That's true.
Right.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, no. So I mean, yeah. So I've had a retail store that I opened with my friend Jeff, and we've had it for 20 years. And I mean, I think that that gives me a lot of insight into what people want out of a game, because I get to watch lots and lots of people play games on a weekly basis at my shop, right? So I kind of know what people enjoy and what things are maybe missing from the market as well. So I don't see a lot of games that are accessible yet engaging for people who like to play games. I think it's not a kid's game. That's kind of the important point. It's a game that's very family friendly and anyone can play, but there's some depth to it so that you're not going to hate it if you're an adult playing with kids or a gamer playing with friends who are casual players, etc.
Yeah, which I think that you do have a really unique perspective on that, because I've been to a lot of different game stores all over the country, all over the world, just like to go check them out when I'm traveling. And I think of those stores, yours is really one of the most family friendly and inviting stores I've been to. And I imagine that also being in the Portland metropolitan area, you get just a lot more different people coming in than somewhere like my store in Montana, where I get the same people almost every week. So I think that's great that you are creating a game that works for the diversity that you're seeing in your own store. I think that's very cool.
Yeah, and I think that's important, right? Because game stores can get kind of focused on just kind of the hardcore gamer games that take, 2 hours or whatever to play and are really detailed and involved. But it's important to remember that, even those of us that are gamers, we all have families and extended families that are not. And if you like playing games, you can get a lot more gaming in if you've got casual things that you can get everyone into.
Yeah, and I actually took this game to ACB Games Day a couple weeks ago. And at that show, it's about 250 retailers from all over the place. And so those are people who really intensely love games, or else they wouldn't be doing this as a profession. And I saw a lot of them sitting down at the table because it was so beautiful, because they really liked the way the creatures looked and the look and feel of the game. But by the end of the game, they're like, wait a second, all these choices that I made during this game, because it's a deck builder, are kind of catching up now. And I love this thing that I created. This deck, this whole process of taking care of my dragon was just really fun. And that's what I heard over and over again all night long. And what's great is that they could play the whole game in about 30 minutes. And so you can play it again if you want to. Just as a whole package, it really turned out to be that accessible, lightweight game that you were looking for, without being too easy or without being too flat. It just really it has a lot of good depth to it.
That's what we hope. I know
we were really actually pretty blown away by the response from the stores, right? Where, most game stores, their bread and butter are games that are a little bit more hardcore. and the hobby retailers were really excited about it. It was getting a lot of good attention. So it's nice to see. I think that speaks to that stores are diversifying more and broadening their selection to appeal to a larger selection of customers, right?
And we tricked them a little too, because if there is a dragon in the title.
That's true.
I've totally found that, like,
a little bit, a tiny hook for those hardcore gamers. It's like, look, there's a dragon.
So just to back up to you, Katie, again. So did you see that with the comic, that same type of response? Because comic books traditionally you think of as superheroes and big dudes fighting monsters, and you're doing something completely different. So did you end up feeling like you were reaching a completely different crowd than what was expected in that comic world?
I think with comics, there's kind of what we would call cape comics. So that's all Marvel, and to some extent even Dark Horse and Image and things. Usually that's kind of still considered like capey. And there are some stores that only stock cape comics and some people who only read cape comics. And that's fine. I didn't make a book for them. I don't care if they read my book. So and then there's just like a very strong, like, I guess, I don't know if you do call it indie comics. I think some people define it as like comics or graphic novels, which I think it works, but it has problems as well. But there's definitely plenty of people who are looking for comics that aren't like that. So lots of memoirs and fantasy, and especially people who grew up reading Japanese comics, they come wanting a very, very different experience when they read a graphic novel. So I think it hasn't been too bad, but what's been really nice is kind of also being able to kind of expand into like maybe kind of children's books as well. Like we kind of made sure it looked kind of like a golden book or a storybook that kids might have read just as a picture book. So kind of being in that niche as well as, you know, just the normal comic book stores has been really nice. And it hasn't been too difficult, I think, to achieve that, especially since Oni changed distributors actually from Diamond to Simon & Schuster, which is definitely more of a bookstore focus rather than like a comic book focus.
Right, and your first book, Princess Ever After, that got picked up by Scholastic here in the States, right?
It did, yes.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean,
what about that?
Yeah, I mean that's just absolutely. I mean, that's just huge. I mean, the other probably big comic book graphic novel series that crossed over to that did it, I guess, over a decade ago was Jeff Smith's Bone. And
oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when that got picked up by Scholastic, it was virtually unheard of from something from like kind of the traditional comic book world to go into that space, and it really just broadened the audience for his work. And for comics in general, right? Because now people saw, right, that story is a fairy tale. And again, to your point, it's not capes, right? Like, so people were exposed to a, you know, comic book, a narrative storytelling medium that was not Superman or Batman, you know? So it was really cool.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, even in like the last couple of years, I've definitely noticed the big publishing houses taking graphic novels a lot more seriously, especially for younger readers, and either starting new imprints or just focusing a lot more or acquiring new titles and developing new titles and things. So I think especially just recently it's really started like growing even more.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. That's why we wanted to make a game based on your stuff.
It is. It's like the candy of the comic book world. It's the sweet, beautiful, wonderful treat at the end.
Yeah, I can vouch for how incredibly difficult it was for me to sell Scott on a game for your book.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so hard.
I did also, speaking of sweet, beautiful, fun things, want to talk to Tyler because you have some experience more in the toy side of things. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background, Tyler? Oh, you're on mute. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Yay.
There we are. Yeah, so before I finally got some games published, I made a lot of paper toys. And to what Scott was speaking about, my first one that was published was actually for Scholastic as Bone.
Wow, I had no idea.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
fantastic. So what is that you're showing us? So it's a paper.
That's a rat creature.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it
Stupid rat creature to you. But, yeah.
Yeah. And so that was in the Bone Handbook.
Wow, that's fun.
So Tyler, I didn't know that you actually made that, and I own the Bone Handbook.
Nice. Did you make the guy or?
My son did, I'm sure. I can't. If I made the guy, he would look like a transporter. It would look like a transporter accident or something.
He's not that difficult to make.
Oh, no. Oh, that's funny. So that's really cool. I had no idea you did that. So what else have you done sort of in that toyetic world?
So I think the first self-published thing I did that got traction was called Big Big Battles, which was a coloring book miniatures game for kids to download and print out and then color, and then they would have cards to play it with.
Wow, I love how creative that is. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, and I've also done pre-colored toys, like here's a steampunk mouse, and I've done more corporate stuff. Here is Claptrap from a video game.
Yep, I played that one.
And the assembly video for this toy actually features the voice actor and some written comedy, which was pretty fun. But yeah, I make toys and games.
So what was your experience like working with the T-Dragon Society? So you've done some other card games before. So how was this one?
Yeah, so a few years before we got T-Dragon, I tried to teach one of my good friends Dominion. And I just realized that there's a lot to how the basics of Dominion that just fly over people's heads with the way you collect cards, and the cards you get go into your discard pile, and that immediately trips people up. And so I started experimenting and trying to find card game mechanics that would make sense to people immediately. And then Steve comes to me and he's like, here's this book with T-Dragons. You want to make a game? What kind of game do you want to make? And I'm like, obviously, the artwork is beautiful, so card game makes perfect sense. And I had all these little lessons I learned from a previous game. And so I made a basic mechanic, and Steve and I ran with it from there. But yeah, I'd also just gotten a puppy at the time. I never raised a puppy before. And well, T-Dragons definitely might have the temperaments of cats. They definitely have the maintenance required of a puppy.
I love that inspiration. That's so adorable.
And you just really have to pay attention to what that puppy is doing, or there's going to be a lot of messes to clean up and a lot of broken items.
Those little T-Dragons are surprisingly feisty, aren't they?
Yes, they bite. They will, chew up your books. They will.
So what Tyler is referring to is that in a lot of deck builders, when you draw your hand, there are these cards that are either just dead cards that do nothing, or they have some negative experience, but it's just sort of like losing points or something like that. And in the T-Dragon Society, you're taking care of this dragon, and so you're flipping over cards, and basically it's like drawing your hand. And if you draw one of these cards that's something like bite, then it might remove one of the previous good cards that you'd already played into your tableau, and they just kind of go into the discard together. So it's not a strongly negative experience. It's like you had this little minor training setback with your T-Dragon, but you can always recover from it pretty easily, which I think is a great representation of how that works.
Yeah, that's a much better setback than training setbacks that you have with your dog, for example.
With my particular dog, I had some pretty major training setbacks.
Before we could have carpets in the house again.
Yeah. Well, that's not bad for you. Your dog might soil the carpet. Sarah's dog will just eat people.
Yeah, she's quite vicious. Oh, but she's trained very well in lots of other things. It's just biting we didn't ever really get over, but that's okay. If only she had little tea dragon horns, then it'd be even better. Then I could drink the tea and I'd get all of her memories, and maybe I could figure out what's wrong with her. Oh, that's great. Cool.
I just love that nice Sarah has a mean dog.
Yeah, her dog is legendary. So we had Danny, who just joined the team, went up to Montana to go spend the week with Sarah, and I was like, please, we just hired Danny. Don't let your dog feed her.
Oh, no. She survived. Only minor incidents. It all worked out.
Oh, scary.
Yeah, she's a little frightening, but that's okay. Oh man, we have to love all the creatures, right?
That's true.
It's true.
So let me ask you guys, as far as designing, how do you approach something like Steve alluded to earlier, right? Like traditionally, tabletop games made just for kids are a punishment for adults to play. You know, I can say, speaking from experience, like playing with my kids, games that were made for them, you just, right, you're playing that game trying to, you know, you're just hoping that it ends as quickly as possible, right? Like every parent in the world has cheated their ass off at Candyland just make that game end as quickly as possible. So, right, so here we have something where it's a very charming story. It's a world that's really appealing to all ages, but it does have a sweet spot of younger readers. So how do you guys approach that? Like create a game experience that will be fun for younger players, but also be fun for adults and kind of be satisfying. It seems like that's a challenge.
It is. And so with Tea Dragons and in general, like there are some kids games where like they have the advantage of being a physical dexterity game where it's like, oh, you can give something really small for a kid to manipulate and the adults are going to have trouble doing that. So it's still a challenge for everybody, but they have a natural leg up. But for a card game, it's trickier because it's about reading comprehension. It's about doing math. And with Tea Dragon, I think it comes down to you can plan out your play and you can have a strategy, but there's still enough variance in the system to where sometimes you won't win even if you went in with a really good idea. And even if you're not causing all the chain reactions to happen properly, you know, you're still getting to draw these adorable cards with this beautiful artwork and wonderful graphic design. You know, you still get to see the grumpy card every once in a while. And the grumpy card is just great. Like, how can you not have fun looking at the grumpy card? I don't know.
I think. I was going to say a big thing for us was, just kind of that top-down approach. We both read the book multiple times before we started on it, right? And we actually drew a lot of material from the little handbook section at the back of the book as well. And so, it was like a kind of a journey of figuring out. It's like first we had the basic mechanic, and of course, people don't see the multiple iterations that were not very fun, right? I didn't bring it out to show others until we thought it was pretty decent, right? So, we played a lot of games where it was kind of, okay, well, this kind of works, but it's not fun, or right, or this is interesting, but it doesn't really work mathematically. It doesn't seem balanced. It's really off, So there's all these iterations, but the big thing is that top-down design where we started with the book and we really thought about what those types of fans would enjoy for the age group and things like that, and then tried to make a game that we would also like to play, because when you're designing a game, you're going to play test it a lot.
Yeah.
So, it can't, you know, you can't be too painful because you're going to feel the pain more than anyone else if it's bad and if it's really, really boring for an adult to play, you know. So I think that was the big thing, is we just really focused on a game that fit the demographics, and then we tried to make the game fun for ourselves without alienating who we were really targeting. Katie got to see a pretty early version last summer, which I think was probably the first rev of what we thought was a finished game. Or very close to being a finished game. And I mean, I think that she saw that pretty quickly, that it was very thematic, and then it wasn't boring, right? But because we broke the actions down to very simple, it's like you can either take an action and acquire a card, or you draw a card. Like that's your whole I mean, that's your turn. Now, what you do and when you make those decisions to do one or the other become very important. But the basic decision is, if you're a 5-year-old kid and it's your turn, you can just flip a card over. Or when you have a whole bunch of cards, you can say, okay, I'm going to get something cool. You know, I mean, so it's very accessible for a younger player to just kind of do what they want and have fun, you know, whereas older people can start to kind of strategize and realize that, oh, now's the perfect time to buy a memory because I actually really want to reshuffle my deck because my discard pile has all the good stuff in it, you know. So there's a lot more strategy as you play the game more, and it evolves.
Yeah, it's very charming, but it's also very mellow, right? Like you just kind of go through it and play through the seasons, but then it kind of all comes together at the end, like all your decisions play out.
Yeah, I mean, this afternoon I actually was cleaning my office some, and I was going through a bunch of old T-Dragon notes, right? And I found the initial page of notes that Tyler and I had made basically the first time we got together, right? And it had all kinds of things that we discarded, but, you know, it had, you know, bites, maybe gloves could protect you, they need to be fed, they like to sleep, you know. So it had like all these little ideas that became the game, you know. So I think that, you know, it's an interesting process, probably much like writing a book or something. You go down a lot of paths before you figure out what the story really is.
Well, one thing mechanically that I really appreciated about it was that I didn't understand just from reading through the rules how much of a push your luck game it actually ended up being. And I love that about it because it adds an element of suspense and fun that you get to once you really understand what's going on with the game. But like you said, a 5-year-old could just flip over a card and it's totally fine. But that idea of if you flip over a card and you have a bunch of good stuff on the board, but you flip over a bite, it might remove one of those good cards.
Exactly.
So you want to find that sweet spot of I have enough stuff on my board now to be able to go and buy a card that I want. But if I go much further, I might start losing the stuff that I have. And that's elegant and beautiful and works for anybody who's playing the game.
If you look at stuff that Tyler and I have worked on, it becomes apparent that we both like push your luck elements in games, and we like games that give you opportunities to have kind of little dramatic moments, you know, either, oh, that was awesome, or, oh no, I can't believe that happened, right? Because it's fun. It's fun to have little tiny emotional reactions as you play a game, because that's kind of where the fun comes from.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I can't think of a more mellow push your luck game. I was very surprised that you were able to do both.
That's a good play it mellow, or you can get in a race and then it gets real tense because there's only so many memory cards each round. And
it's true. Tyler and I have had some very intense 2-player games that take about 10 minutes.
Oh, funny.
I'm going to groom that chamomile way faster than you.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that we didn't mention for those of you who haven't played yet, is that you pick a dragon to take care of at the very beginning. So you might be taking care of chamomile while somebody else is taking care of Rubios. So you each have this thing that you're already connected to. And I think that's important because you immediately care more about this thing than about those other people's things. And it gives you little pushes in certain directions. So it splits up which cards you want to buy, which just makes the whole game smoother. So not only is it thematically fun, but mechanically actually helps you. Yeah. And that's just smart design.
It's really cool that it personalizes it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's like doing demos, like, you know, high level mathematics, there's no difference between the dragons, but it just, you know, you can play a different dragon, and because all the artwork's different, it's still fun and different.
Yeah.
It's amazing that you guys were able to pull that off, and that Katie was able to do the extra artwork for it. And it's like, I always ask way too much when I'm trying to get a game published, and you guys delivered it, and I couldn't be happier with how you guys executed.
So how much extra work, Katie, did you put into the game as far as designing extra stuff for it?
It actually wasn't too bad because I'd made quite a few assets for the website already, and then we were able to pull quite a lot from the book, so that was really handy. So I think I ended up doing about 15 or 16 actual dedicated pieces for it. So that didn't seem too bad at all to me, considering how many cards there are and how nicely they turned out in terms of the design and everything. So
that's awesome. One of the pieces of artwork that you did especially for this, I believe, is the one on Scott's shirt. Is that right?
Yes, that's the box art.
Yeah.
Yay! It's so
That's
cute.
right.
I'm excited. So at Origins this year, which is actually just next week, we are going to have copies of the T-Dragon Society for sale. Some of the very first copies out there. And also our staff gets to wear these exciting shirts.
Hide your T-Dragons. Man-eating dog is around.
I hear it.
Well, so we'll have both versions at Origins, right?
Yeah, we will actually. So just for conventions, we actually made a whole other special one. Was that a different artwork? Did you make this artwork just for that box as well, or was that from one of your books?
That actually was the kind of bridge page between sort of the end of the book and then the epilogue of the book. So that one kind of already existed. Yeah.
I love it. It's so bright and beautiful with the white cover. I think it's just really gorgeous.
And the spot gloss on the cover is so good. It made me so happy when I saw it in person.
Man.
We are all about spot varnish here at Renegade, let me tell you.
Yeah.
We don't mess around.
No.
That composition just looks like a Norman Rockwell painting. I love the exclusive box.
It's very
So
pretty.
it turned out so nicely.
Yeah, I when we wanted to do an exclusive box, I grabbed that image immediately and I was like, this has to be it because it's got all the characters for Katie's fans. So I think it's a really good convention exclusive because if you're a fan of her work, you get everything you want in that image.
Well, it's also nice that one ties in more with the book, whereas for the main box art, I kind of didn't want to include the characters because you want it to be able to stand alone as well.
Right. Well, I mean, the box that's on the regular box is just absolutely ridiculously charming, right? The dragons are basically sitting around, having a tea party. Come on. There's the kettle and their brush, and they have their cups, and their little blanket is out. It's just,
it's perfect.
One of them's doing a sploot. That is too adorable.
Yeah.
Oh my. So yeah, if you are a fan, if you're in the channel and you're excited about getting one of these, we will have the regular and the convention exclusive available at Origins, but we're going to do a crazy amount of shows this week, or not this week, this year.
This week.
Yeah, it feels like it. We're planning all of them this week, but we have Origins coming up just next week, and then we're going to Gen Con. Oni Press will be at San Diego Comic-Con in San Diego in July. Then Gen Con for us, and then we will also be at New York Comic-Con and PAX with Oni Press, just across the aisle from us. That'll be fun. And then PAX Unplugged, which I'm super excited about that show with this game, because I think that that's just the perfect demographic. We have all these people who have been interested in things that were sort of a tangential industry, mostly video games, and are just looking for something that allows them to connect with their friends and family, sit down at a table and have a real experience together. And I cannot think of a better game for that crowd than the T-Dragon Society.
It'll be perfect, yeah. And I'll be at I'll be at Origins with these guys and Gen Con and PAX Unplugged. So I'll be around a bunch this year too.
Yeah, and Oni Press is also going to PAX Prime. So they will also
Yes.
have a couple of copies of this.
And Emerald City Comic Con and a bunch of other things too. So yeah.
Everywhere.
The two companies will blanket the world this summer and fall.
Yeah, that's the main plan. It should be pretty fun. So yeah, awesome. There's just so much going on. It's super crazy.
Yeah, we might survive the summer.
We'll see. Yeah, we did announce a couple weeks ago that we hired a new person who, she is not actually here tonight, but she'll hopefully be joining us for the next one, Danny Lowe. And she is an industry vet. She's been in the industry for almost her entire adult life now. And
well, she's 9 years old. So. We were talking with Danny a couple weeks ago, and I think she told us that, when did she graduate from high school? 2008, 2009?
Very recently.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. We almost fired her on the spot just out of spite.
No, that's terrible. She has a fresh new perspective, and she is helping us out with all of our convention stuff, social media, and all that that's going on. So we found a millennial, and she's helping us out.
Yeah. I approve. She's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, we're excited. So if you are at conventions this summer, please stop by and find the T-Dragon Society, but then also say hi to Danny. It'll be fun. All right. So I, as usual, have forgotten to have a game piece ready for a game giveaway. Do you want to chat a little bit, Scott, while I go find one? I promise to turn off my mic this time.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, go for it.
All right, that's awesome. So this is also a tradition that Sarah usually forgets the piece for the giveaway, and then she has to go run and get it. So, Katie, tell us a little bit about, like, we've referenced it a few times. So you were at TCAP and BandCAF. Most people don't know what that is. This was my first year going to Toronto for TCAP, and it was amazing. So tell us a little bit about that, if you could.
Yeah, I guess there's something that's like, they're known to everybody's in comics, but maybe not so known outside or even with more like mainstream comics. But they're basically comic festivals, indie comic festivals held in Canada. So there's one in Toronto and one in Vancouver. And I think they're starting other ones in the other cities like Montreal. But they're free entry for the public, and they're held usually, I mean, the Toronto one's held in a public library, VanCAF was held in a community centre, so they're very much like a community event. So you get just a huge, I mean, first of all, you get heaps of people. Toronto was just absolutely packed this year, which was incredible.
Yeah, no, like people I think might hear that it was in the public library. It was 20,000 people.
Yeah, no, it was
Toronto.
Like, you couldn't move in the public library.
Yeah, right. Like it wasn't like 5 or 6 tables set up in the library with like 12 people milling around. Yeah, it was.
It's not quaint. It's real, and they get like a lot of and like they have the ground floor. It's got all like booksellers. And then the top 2 floors are more independent artists and things. It's a really nice con to do. I think everyone enjoys doing it just because there's such a good crowd and you get such a good mix of people, and it's much more accessible and inclusive than other comic shows sometimes are. Yeah,
and it was really cool. It was ironic too. So we were there. We were they were promoting T-Dragons and hanging out. And one of our other game designers that we work with, who we have a game coming out next month. I'm just walking around and I see Daniel Solis there from North Carolina. I'm like, what are you doing here? He's like, oh, it's vacation. We came to Toronto to come just for this event. Like that was their main reason for going there. So that was really cool. Wow. I learned something. Yeah, I want to go back. So we'll see.
Yeah, I thought it was a great show, and it was really cool because a lot of big game conventions that you go to, you'll see the same people over the course of 4 days over and over and over. They just keep coming by. But at this show, because it's free to the public, it was just like a constant stream of people who were seeing you for the first time for 2 full days. I mean, the amount of traffic was amazing. Yeah, it was really neat.
Wow, that sounds so cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. I went around looking for artists for future projects too. That was like one of my favorite things is finding new artists. So that was a blast. So Sarah's back, and she didn't get eaten along the way. So
my cat almost did. He survived, but it was close.
Okay. And it was great. We didn't hear any sort of like rumbling or rustling in the back. So well done there. Good.
So you didn't see the game that I got?
No.
Oh, nice. Okay. No. So this is a little bit different. People may not think of this as a game component, but it's a very important thing that we put in the box. So if you can figure out which game this is from, I will be impressed, and you will win a copy of it. So 1, 2, 3, good luck. Here we go.
Wait, they have to tell you the game that goes with?
Uh-huh. It's one of our games. There aren't that many options, really.
I know what it is.
You know what it is? Nice.
Of course I do.
I think it's surprising to me how much effort we put into these, because game inserts are actually very, very important. And yeah, if you do them correctly, they can be awesome. If you do not do them correctly, then people are sad.
As a game player, I throw about 75% of them away because most of them are bad. I don't do that with the ones from Renegade, however.
Nice.
Oh, nice recovery.
No, there's a lot that are just bad.
John Paul, I really thought you were going to get this one, but that is not correct. Colin, nope, not that one either. Let's try again. Maybe Man vs. Meeple. You guys are hanging out. Any guesses from you? This is, I think, one of the more unique games in our catalog.
This is the toughest thing that you've ever done for this contest.
I know, it really is.
You may actually stump them this time.
No, right, you can't be stumped. I mean, if people have games, all you have to do is go open a couple. You know what size it was.
It's true. It's true. I can show it again. All right, the first person to email me, customer service at renegadegames.com.
John Paul says, no clue. You stumped him.
I did. Oh, that is also a good guess, but also incorrect. This game is slightly smaller than Atlas. It is the same size as the Fox in the Forest, so that's fair. That was a good guess. I'm excited. So we are reprinting the Fox in the Forest for the 5th time right now. It's pretty exciting.
It's a pretty unique game.
Mm-hmm. Not the one that I showed, though. Yeah, who is the illustrator on that? I don't remember.
It starts with an L. I follow her on Twitter.
Jennifer. What's her last name?
John Paul says Scott Pilgrim. No, it's a little too small for Scott. He says throwing darts now.
Oh man, there's only the only other thing in this box is the rule book and the cards. There's nothing else.
So Randy is in chat and he says it was Jennifer Meyer.
Jennifer Meyer. I knew it was a Jennifer.
That's the artist for Fox in the Forest.
Awesome. Oh, you guys. Okay, well.
So we don't have a winner yet?
We don't have a winner yet. But like I said, first person to watch this and email me. Wonderland is also a very good guess, but also incorrect.
Sarah's just mean. See, everybody's finally getting to see Sarah's true personality.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks Sarah's sweet and nice.
Now we know why the dog bites.
Yeah, exactly. She's really the enemy of fun. Like that's her nickname within the company is the enemy of fun. So.
I thought it'd be fun to give away a game, but apparently not.
Can you imagine what that poor dog has to do for a treat?
So somebody in chat now Sarah's being called a Cylon. That's pretty accurate.
Cylon.
Sarah is always the traitor.
Yeah, that's true. Especially in games where there's not a traitor, I can definitely figure out how to be the traitor. Traitor mechanics.
Nice. All right.
Awesome.
So what is this now? If people email you at customer service,
customer service at renegadegames.com. First person to email me, I will send a copy of it.
So they have time to study the video and figure it out. She's made it so hard you have homework, people.
Oh, that's great.
That's awesome. So it is now time for some game updates. What do we have going on this week, Scott? I
don't know. I'm working on things that come out in a year, so.
I know it's a lot of stuff that we can't talk about that I've been spending my time on, but some of the things we did do, we sent out our survey for Overlight, which is a project that we have been working on for a while now, did our Kickstarter. So all of our Kickstarter backers now get to tell us all of the beautiful things that they want. And we also revealed some of the back of our GM screen from Kwanchai Moria. He's an incredible artist. Talk about color.
Yeah, so I'm just going to tell you right now, if you don't spoil the rest of the art for the GM screen, it's becoming my Facebook banner, like across my account by Friday. So the clock's ticking, because as soon as that art, the final art was posted, I immediately like took a copy of the art and I was like, oh, I can't post it yet. So
So the main reason why I only spoiled that much of the art was because I needed a square picture for this survey for the back.
No, right. So it's like a GM screen, guys. It's like 4 panels. It's this big panoramic piece of art that Kwanchai Moria did, and it would look wonderful on my Facebook page and my Twitter account.
That's a really good point. I should probably just make it so anybody can do that, actually.
I'm just warning the marketing department.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for the heads up.
Right.
Amazing. So yeah, if you are an Overlight backer, you can now go and complete that survey, which would really help us out. So please do that. And yeah, we'll be shipping that stuff out really soon. It's basically all finished now, which is very exciting. Our team really put a lot of effort into getting it done quickly, which happens sometimes when Gen Con is coming up fast. So we're working on that, putting together some events. We have some really, really fun stuff at Origins. If you want to come to our booth, we have a fantastic photo op that may or may not involve an animal from the camel family. It's pretty adorable. And more spoilers.
All right, now I'm definitely coming to the booth.
Yeah, it'll be amazing.
I think we want pictures of people riding it.
We're gonna figure out how to make that happen. Yeah, it should be fun. So, okay. Now we have a thing we have to figure out. So, Colin, if Colin emailed us faster than John Paul guessed the correct thing. Oh, I'm going to say you both get copies. That's totally
there you
fine.
go. That's the right answer, because you already tortured them enough.
I did. Good job, guys. It is, in fact, The Blood of an Englishman. Hilarious. Nice. Good job, guys. And I think there's only 1 or 2 more things. So one, I forgot to mention that today is a very special day at Renegade because it is the release of Prowler's Passage.
That's right. Hey, they almost.
And that game comes out today. You can find it at your friendly local retail stores. It is a game for exactly 2 players, so you and your best friend can go and battle it out. It is a very interesting game of stealing treasure from those horrible rich people. So that's exciting. And
it's on my dining room table.
Nice. I think it's a really different, clever game. It's very cool. And then also, I believe that we're in the last couple hours of our Spy Club giveaway. So if you want a chance to win another game, go and sign up for that. It's at renegadegames.com/giveaways. You can win a copy of Spy Club. And that's coming out July 11th if you do not happen to get a free copy now. So I think that's everything. 8 o'clock. Perfect.
Wow, look at that.
Was exactly perfect. So Katie, thank you so much for joining us. It was absolutely a pleasure. I know this is probably a very weird time for you in New Zealand, so thank you for dealing with it. And anytime, you're welcome back. Absolutely. And Steve, thank you for taking time out of your intense retailer lifestyle. And Tyler,
you play games all day. Give me a break.
Yeah,
it's true.
It's mostly, mostly just that.
Yeah.
I mean, the funny thing is, I had just talked to Scott like a half hour before this call.
Nice. That's awesome.
We were actually doing work.
Oh, sure.
We don't only just talk about Star Wars.
Oh man, I bet there's a lot of Star Wars. And Tyler, I'm sure that you could have been very busy either taking care of your dog or making toys.
Nope, nothing to do. Nothing going on.
Awesome. Well, it was still our pleasure to have all of you and all your wonderful insights. So thank you for joining us, and everybody in the chat room. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being here every week. And have a blast. We are going to be back next week with Dan Bojanowski, who is a Renegade Game Studios team member. He is our game producer. So if you're a designer and you want to know how to get your games in front of somebody, join us next week. It should be fun.
You open the floodgates. Nice.
Yeah, I'm going to throw all sorts of fun stuff at Dan. I can't wait. And if you're going to be in Columbus next week, we'll see you at Origins. Thank you guys so much, and enjoy all of your gaming this week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.